Welcome back to Boxing Facts. Today, we've got massive headlines shaking up the world of MMA, including Michael Chandler's game plan, a potential UFC and Netflix deal, and a possible super fight between Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. Let's jump right into it, starting with Michael Chandler and his thoughts on his upcoming bout against Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Michael Chandler has a pivotal test ahead of him in the form of Paddy Pimblett, but it doesn't sound like the former Bellator champ is planning to reinvent his approach when he steps into the cage at UFC 314. Chandler has been booked to fight the rising star on the April 12th card, following consecutive losses to Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier. Now, while there's no changing the fact that Chandler has had a remarkable career, if he loses to Pimblett, his days as a top contender could be over. Despite recent setbacks, Chandler doesn't seem to be adopting a new strategy. Case in point, he told UFC.com the following: "There's always the court of public opinion, narratives, and storylines. For me, it's just another guy with 2 arms and 2 legs who's my size. I've been doing this since I was 14 years old, essentially hand-to-hand combat on the wrestling mats, and then in mixed martial arts for 15 years. So it's a lot of the same. I'm gonna go out there, put the pressure on him, hit him with some big shots, and see if he can hang." Now, it's possible that Chandler might switch gears and look to counter-strike, but that seems highly unlikely. While he's come up short in several UFC fights, he's largely faced elite competition, and he's made it clear that he plans to vet whether Pimblett belongs among the best at 155. Meanwhile, Paddy Pimblett also spoke to the UFC crew. He firmly believes Chandler won't make it the distance at UFC 314. "I'm ready to do 5 rounds, Paddy said. "I've done 5 rounds in Cage Warriors before, but this isn't going 5 rounds. Chandler is getting finished in 2. He also noted that a win at UFC 314 could put him 1 win away from a title shot, and his fellow Englishman Michael Bisping agrees. If he gets the job done against Michael Chandler, and he just might do that, then I'm telling you, Paddy Pimblett is probably 1 fight away from fighting for a belt. Whether you like it or not, whether you say, but he had cherry-picked matchups, or he was slow-rolled, just like a lot of other fighters like Sugar Sean O'Malley. The truth is, the competition has progressively gotten harder for Paddy Pimblett. That's a fact. So what do you think, fight fans? Does Paddy finish Chandler inside 2 rounds, or will Iron Mike Chandler shut down the hype? As UFC 314 draws near, let's move on to another shocking headline. Dana White is reportedly confirming serious interest in ending the UFC's partnership with ESPN and turning instead to Netflix. Yep, you heard that right. The long-standing relationship between UFC and ESPN, once seen as solid and unshakable, might be heading for a major split. According to a report from Eric Richter of the New York Post, Dana White has already made up his mind behind closed doors. So what pushed the UFC to the edge? Sources say the final straw was the absolute disaster that was Pereira versus Ankalaev, a card that should have been huge, but instead was remembered for all the wrong reasons. During the main event, fans were hit with a flood of streaming issues on ESPN+. Many couldn't even load the fight, buffering became unbearable, and the backlash was instant. Even some fighters jumped online to express their frustration, pointing out how ESPN's tech failures have become a recurring theme. And let's be honest, this wasn't the first time. ESPN Plus has developed a pretty bad reputation for unreliable service, especially during high-stakes pay-per-view events. Behind the scenes, things are getting tense. The UFC is reportedly furious about ESPN's outdated technology and poor user experience. Meanwhile, ESPN isn't happy either. They're blaming low PPV numbers and shrinking returns. And here's where it gets even worse. Those low PPV numbers don't just hurt ESPN or UFC profits, they also affect the fighters themselves. Many top-tier fighters rely on PPV points as part of their contracts, but if the PPV buys are down, those points become basically worthless. In response to all this chaos, the UFC is now reportedly exploring a major move to Netflix. While Netflix has traditionally rejected the pay-per-view model, insiders claim they're now open to negotiating, especially for an exclusive UFC deal. And the UFC, they're willing to bend over backwards to make this transition work. Meanwhile, ESPN has its own priorities. They've already announced plans to drop MLB coverage by 2026 in favor of pushing more NBA, NFL, WNBA, and college football content. With those sports taking priority, UFC is clearly no longer the main attraction, and Dana White wants out. If UFC truly jumps ship to Netflix, it could change the entire landscape of combat sports broadcasting. No more buffering, no more lag, just a new platform built to handle the demand. But what do you think? Have you ever had issues streaming UFC fights on ESPN Plus? Did it ruin a card for you? Let us know in the comments. Your voice matters. Alright, let's move on to a story that's had the entire MMA world buzzing. A recent leak that set social media on fire. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. That's right. During a Spanish-language broadcast of Saturday's UFC event, a surprising graphic appeared on screen. And it wasn't just any graphic. It clearly displayed a matchup between Topuria and Oliveira, as if the fight had already been officially booked. Within seconds, the MMA community exploded with speculation. Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, everyone was talking about it. Could it be true? Is this the next super fight? But hold on, not so fast. According to UFC officials, the supposed leak was a total mistake. Speaking to Alex Bahonen of MMA Mania, the promotion quickly issued a statement clarifying the situation. They said the matchup was not official and that the graphic had been displayed in error. Still, that hasn't stopped fans from dreaming and speculating. Because let's be honest, this accidental leak feels a little too specific. Topuria versus Oliveira isn't some random fantasy booking. It's a realistic, high-stakes showdown that actually makes sense, especially given where both fighters are in their careers. Let's talk about Topuria for a second. After vacating the featherweight title, reportedly due to brutal weight cut issues, he's made it crystal clear he wants a second belt, and he's not waiting around. So far in 2024, Topuria is a perfect 2-0, but those weren't just wins, they were statement victories. Historic knockouts over Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway, two legends of the game. With performances like that, many fans expected him to move directly into a lightweight title fight, most likely against Islam Makhachev. But if Makhachev isn't ready, or if timing doesn't align, Charles Oliveira is the other big name in the mix. Let's not forget, Oliveira is a former lightweight champion and one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC. His grappling, his striking, his ability to pull off wild finishes, he's the kind of guy that makes any fight feel like a main event. So now we're left wondering, was this really just a broadcasting blunder? Or did someone at UFC let the cat out of the bag a little early? Either way, it's hard not to get hyped. So what do you think? Was the leak an honest mistake? Or an early sneak peek at a fight that's already in the works? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about another major moment that's got the fight world fired up. Paddy Pimblett going off on Arman Tsarukyan in an explosive rant that left no room for doubt. This all went down during Paddy's appearance on the Full Send podcast, and let's just say he held nothing back. Paddy went straight for the jugular, calling Arman Tsarukyan a little posh boy who's had everything handed to him on a silver platter by his dad. That's a bold accusation, and it didn't stop there. Paddy took direct aim at Arman's recent injury excuse, strongly suggesting it was completely fake. In his own words, Paddy said, "He's a little boy." Then he brought up Arman's wild training videos, the ones where he does crazy acrobatic flips, literally landing on his neck and bouncing back up like nothing happened. And now all of a sudden, Arman claims he's got a bad back. Paddy wasn't buying it, not even close. He said, "Dana said it, didn't he?" Dana shut him down in that interview. That was heavy. You don't want the boss saying that about you. And for context, Dana White did in fact question Arman's withdrawal and appeared visibly annoyed when asked about the situation in a press interview. Dana even hinted that the UFC had their doubts about whether Arman was truly injured. Paddy doubled down, adding more fuel to the fire. Doctors came out, the best masseuse at the PI came out, and nobody told him he couldn't fight. He decided not to fight. Then, in classic Paddy fashion, he closed it out with a line that had the podcast hosts and fans laughing, gasping, and reposting all over social media. So basically, Arman, you shet your pants. That's what you did. You farted and followed through. Brutal, straight up savage. And while some fans found it hilarious, others saw it as unnecessary disrespect toward a top tier contender like Arman Tsarukyan. But one thing's clear, this beef is real and it's heating up fast. Whether it's on social media, in interviews, or maybe even in the octagon, this feud is far from over. So what do you think? Is Paddy just trolling for views, or is he trying to pick a real fight? Let us know in the comments, and tell us, would you watch Paddy versus Arman? Next up, we've got a major update that could shake up the entire lightweight division. Islam Makhachev's next fight might be just around the corner, and the opponent, let's just say, it's got people talking. Popular MMA content creator Real Kevin K took to X and dropped a short but intriguing interview clip featuring Jabril Dulatov, a close contact to the Makhachev camp. And in that clip, Dulatov made a big reveal. He said Islam Makhachev is expected to compete during International Fight Week. Yes, the biggest week in MMA in Las Vegas. But it gets better. Dulatov added that Islam's opponent would likely be a former champion from a lower weight division. That line alone sent the MMA internet into a frenzy. Why? Because there's really only one name that fits that description and has the hype to headline a major card: Ilia Topuria. Topuria, the former featherweight champ, has made it clear he's ready to chase a second belt. And if there's any fighter who could skip the line and go straight to a lightweight title shot, it's Ilia. Las Vegas, International Fight Week, Makhachev versus Topuria. It would be a massive fight, maybe one of the biggest of the year. But until it's officially announced, all we can do is wait. Alright, let's switch gears and talk about another man making headlines: Michael Chandler. This time it's not about his fights, it's about the cheating allegations that have followed him from past opponents like Dustin Poirier and Charles Oliveira. Dustin accused Chandler of fish hooking during their bout, a move where fingers are illegally used to pull at the mouth. Meanwhile, against Oliveira, Chandler was accused of repeatedly striking the back of the head. In a recent interview with MMA Fighting, Chandler finally addressed the accusations. "The narrative is tough, man," he said. "People don't really know me unless you're in my inner circle. People assume I play nice in front of the camera, and I'm a bad guy behind it. But I know who I am at my core. I try to do things right. I try to treat people right. I fight with honor and respect." Chandler even admitted one of the accusations. "Did I grab Poirier's mouthpiece? Yes, I did, but I thought it was his chin." He continued, "Look, things happen in a fight. You're going to see fingers in gloves, grabbing the cage. It happens. Oliveira dug his chin into my eye socket so hard I thought I was going blind. That's illegal too, but I wouldn't call him a cheater. Sometimes your body just reacts. That's fight or flight. So what do you think? Is Chandler just explaining reality in a chaotic fight, or is he dodging responsibility? Let us know in the comments. Next up, let's dive into a major storyline that's heating up again. Alexander Volkanovski is still interested in a rematch with Ilia Topuria. Yes, you heard that right. Even though Ilia Topuria has officially vacated the featherweight belt and is now focusing on the lightweight division, Volk isn't ready to close that chapter just yet. In fact, he believes the story between him and Topuria is far from over. Volkanovski is now set to face Diego Lopes for the vacant featherweight title at UFC 314, a fight that promises fireworks. Lopes is young, dangerous, and has quickly become a fan favorite with his wild fighting style. But Volkanovski, he's determined to climb back to the top. In a recent interview with UFC Media, Volk made it clear his eyes are still on Topuria. "Ilia would have been my first option," Volk said. "But the fact that I'm fighting for the vacant belt against a young, hungry guy like Lopez, that's the next big thing." Even though Ilia has moved on to chase lightweight gold, Volkanovski is laying out a long-term plan, and it's a big one. "I don't think that story is done yet," he continued. "I plan on winning the belt, defending it, and then maybe we can have that rematch. If Ilia wins the lightweight title, even better. Imagine the rematch while I'm the defending featherweight champ and he's the lightweight champ. That just adds to the story. Imagine that, champion versus champion, a two-division storyline between two of the most skilled fighters on the planet. It would be a mega fight, a blockbuster main event that writes itself." Let's not forget how shocking their first fight was. Volkanovski was undefeated at featherweight, dominant for years, until Ilia Topuria came in and knocked him out cold, handing Volk the most devastating loss of his career. But Volk is not the type to run away from defeat. He wants redemption. And now, with the featherweight belt on the line once again, this is his chance to rebuild, reclaim, and reignite that rivalry. So the question is, will Ilia stay at lightweight, or will he eventually come back down to settle unfinished business? If both men end up as champions in their respective divisions, that rematch could be one of the biggest fights in UFC history. What do you think? Should Topuria and Volkanovski run it back, or is that chapter already closed? Let us know in the comments below. Oscar De La Hoya goes off on Dana White and his new boxing league. Oscar De La Hoya and Dana White have traded verbal shots for years now. Pretty nasty ones decisions at that. So it's not surprising to hear that the Golden Boy is once again trashing the boxing league that White plans to run alongside TKO Group and Turki Alalshik. You already know Dana White has repeatedly blasted how the boxing business operates. For years, he's made it clear he wanted to get into the boxing game. Well, in the latest Clapback Thursday segment from De La Hoya, he absolutely lit up White and his new venture. Not only does De La Hoya believe that boxing elites won't be willing to compete for TKO, he's predicting that UFC fighters are going to riot as well. Everyone has been asking me for my opinion and thoughts on Dana White attempting to enter the boxing space. De La Hoya said, "You can't run a boxing organization when you don't have any fighters. And right now, Dana and TKO have 0 fighters. That means they're likely in it for the long haul, trying to slowly build something that might work years from now, once current fighter contracts expire and they start attempting to sign new talent." But here's the real issue. TKO's supposed fighter pay scale was leaked a few weeks ago, and if those numbers are real, holy dot, they're going to have serious problems. Number 1, no fighter is going to fight for pennies. Most prospects will only fight once or twice a year, and if they're in tough fights like Dana promised, the best must fight the best, then their careers will be short. Number 2, no pay-per-view star is going to fight for $750,000. You're telling me that Canelo or Ryan Garcia would accept a massive pay cut to join TKO? No way. And number 3, the biggest issue of all, if these numbers are true, UFC fighters are going to be furious. Imagine boxers getting paid way more than UFC fighters while doing half the promotion. UFC fighters are already disgusted with how little they're paid, despite putting their lives on the line. And as for Dana's character, De La Hoya said, "I don't even need to say anything about a guy who publicly slapped his own wife and whose own mother wrote a book about what a terrible person her son is." So what do you think about De La Hoya's comments? Do you agree with his predictions? And finally, let's wrap up with some surprising but exciting news. Dustin Poirier is returning to UFC 314, but this time, not to fight. He's stepping in as a desk analyst. That's right. The Diamond won't be inside the octagon this weekend, but he will be delivering his insights and breaking down the action from behind the analyst desk. Poirier will be joining UFC veterans Chael Sonnen and Anthony Smith on the official post-fight show, offering expert analysis and behind-the-scenes perspective as the dust settles after an action-packed night. John Anik will once again serve as the lead commentator cageside, bringing his signature sharp calls and play-by-play energy. Joining him on commentary will be none other than Daniel Cormier and Joe Rogan, a legendary trio that promises nothing but entertainment and expert breakdowns all night long. This will mark Dustin Poirier's 4th time serving as an analyst for the UFC. He made his debut on the analyst desk back at UFC 287 in Miami, impressing both fans and insiders with his calm presence and deep understanding of the fight game. Since then, he's been invited back for UFC 303 and UFC 308, quickly becoming a fan favorite in this new role. It's clear the UFC values Poirier not just as a fighter, but as a veteran voice who brings credibility, authenticity, and knowledge to the desk. Interestingly, Michael Chandler, Poirier's former opponent and current UFC 314 fighter, took to social media to respond to the news. His reaction? Just 3 words. Should be fun. Simple, subtle, but very telling. Chandler will be stepping into the cage at UFC 314 for a highly anticipated clash against Paddy Pimblett, a fight loaded with drama and hype. And now, the man who once went to war with Chandler will be sitting behind the desk analyzing his performance after the fight. Talk about a full circle moment. As we count down the final days to UFC 314, the energy is electric, the card is stacked, titles are on the line, bad blood is boiling. And now, with Dustin Poirier joining the broadcast team, fans are getting yet another layer of insight and star power added to the night. So what do you think? Are you excited to see Poirier back under the UFC lights in a new role? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget, UFC 314 is just around the corner. Get ready.